Hi guys, welcome back to Snakes and Adders Reptile Advice. The other day saw us go through some specimen checks for when you're purchasing a snake. Unfortunately with lizards, those specimen checks aren't as easily done because depending on the group or type of animals we're talking about, those checks will change dependent on body shape, tail shape, etc. So today we'll just take a quick overview of chameleons. These are a very delicate lizard group, much sought after and much coveted. We have to be relatively expedient with doing the checks because we can stress a chameleon out. They think that they're invisible, so just handling them can elicit stress responses. So we're not going to read too much into colour at this point, but you would want to look at the colours of the animal at rest before you go in and handle it to see whether it's under any sort of stress within the vivarium anyway. We want to make sure that the eyes are clear and bright, that they're moving freely, that there's no excessive puffiness or discoloration to the pupil to signify some sort of eye infection. Also on the face, we want to check that the nostrils are clear and that there's no issues there. We want to make sure that the maxilla, the lower jaw, meets flush and neatly to the upper jaw. There's no puffiness, no irritation, nothing to denote any swelling around the lip region. Different chameleons have got different nose ornamentation. This panther chameleon has got the typical ridge, whereas the Mellors chameleons have got a fleshy proboscis. The Fisher's chameleon's got a pair of fleshy proboscises, and then the Jacksons have got 3 horns. So we would want to make sure that these are intact and they're not irritated. Depending on the origin of your animal, it's perfectly feasible some of them may be wild caught. So in the case of flatnecks, Jacksons, Fishers, we need to make sure that they, or the Mellors as well, that we've not rubbed away any of our nose ornamentation whilst in transit. The casque is also important. On this one, this panther's got a relatively low casque, but on Yemens they're big, tall casques, and we don't want that to be distorted or bent or twisted or curved over in any way, which would denote some sort of problem while the animal was growing, suggestive potentially that he's got weak bones or issues. As we move down the body, we want to check the spine, check the crest, make sure it's complete, that we're not missing any scales. We want to make sure that there's no major deviations to the back, denoting any kinking, which could signify problems with incubation temperature or with growth and development provision of UV. From the spine, we're going to work down onto the tail, and again we're working down the tail, looking at the dorsal crest and making sure that it stays in the center of the tail all the way around. If the tail twists and you see that dorsal crest twist away, this is another sign that there may have been developmental issues. Is there good strength and mobility? Just by gently stroking the underside, they will grip up, as you can see, because it's a prehensile tail used as another limb. We want to make sure that there's full mobility there and that it's not hampered in any way. Whilst we're having a look at the end of the tail, it's very common for ends to kink out, so let's just make sure we're nice and straight. So this one's lovely. What we're also going to check for is around the hips and the mobility of the hips. If you think about an Alsatian and the horrific breeding standards that Crufts have put in for German Shepherds, the hip dysplasia and that rolling that they get in the back end, we want to make sure that this animal walks true and proud with his belly in the air. He's not dragging it in any way. There's no sloppiness in the movement of these joints. What we're going to do is trace the limbs down to the knee. We're going to make sure that the knee isn't inflamed in any way. And again, that we've got a nice straight bar down to the on the lower leg down to the feet. We're going to check the nails of the feet. They're split in 2 parts, so 3 and a 2 on this chameleon. We want to make sure the nails are present, there's no residual skin stuck there, and there's no problems to signify anything. I know this is a lot to sort of work through, and this is specific to chameleons. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do an agamid one, an iguanid one, and a gecko one. Well, probably a couple of gecko ones, depending on where they store the fat on their body, so that we can do the checks. As long as people appreciate the videos, we'll keep producing them. It's not an issue. We want people to be prepared. Also know that at Snakes and Adders, these are the sort of checks that we undertake anyway to make sure that our stock is healthy before we offer it for sale. Make sure you check the website, which is www.snakesandadders.co.uk. And from Chaz and Paul at Snakes and Adders, peace. You're an incredibly well-behaved boy, aren't you? Eh? Go on.